We're here with Jim Zuffoletti and Lisa Bowers, two of our entrepreneurs in residence here at the University of Virginia Licensing and Ventures Group. Thank you so much, Jim and Lisa, for taking the time to join us.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So before we delve into your role here as EIRs and specifically your role as EIRs for our I-Corps program, can you maybe tell our viewers a little bit about your backgrounds and what got you here?
Sure.
Why did you start, Jim?
Sure. My name is Jim Zuffoletti. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started being an entrepreneur back in the internet days, and then have worked primarily in the B2B space, ending most recently in the cybersecurity world. I've always been passionate about entrepreneurship, and I have really spent the last couple of years more broadly working with all kinds of entrepreneurial ventures and helping to share a little bit of what I've learned through the years as an entrepreneur, but also in terms of sharing what I've learned from reading and studying entrepreneurship as well. So I consider myself a practitioner, but love to work with other ventures and be involved in it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Lisa, we know you've advised a lot of biotech companies. It's sort of your background, right?
Well, I started my career actually as a biotech executive myself. So I spent about 16 years in Northern California with a company called Genentech and its parent company Roche. And then since then, I was a CEO and founder of a venture fund focused on women's health in biotech, and have been on a management team of a company that just recently went public a couple of years ago, and also have some board experience in a similar space. I'm here at LVG. I just moved to Charlottesville in the last year, and I'm so excited to be able to meet all the incredibly smart people swirling around us seemingly every day, who have great ideas and need a little bit of operator support, is I guess what I would call us to a certain extent. We've been there and done many of that, and are excited to talk to people who are on their first step.
Well, that's like a perfect segue into what my first question was going to be. So I'll let you just maybe expand on that a little bit. Well, what is it so much that you like about being an entrepreneur in residence here at UVA LVG?
Oh, well, I've basically been so inspired by the types of projects that we encounter. I mean, Jim and I are in the middle of a swirl of activity that ranges from, teams that are thinking about carbon neutral construction materials to teams that are thinking about how to test for terminal illness with tiny little drops of blood and everything in between. So I'm constantly learning, not only about new science and technology, new business models, but also I'm meeting lots and lots of really interesting people who themselves are very passionate about what they're doing. And so the conversations, honestly, are, for me, one of the most inspiring parts of the job, and feeling like I'm having some sort of an impact, helping maybe clarify a murky idea or strip away things that aren't important, or help to articulate a set of trade-offs that an entrepreneurial team might be facing. All of that is feeding me right now.
And I suppose you've had some similar feelings?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the dynamic that we get into with the entrepreneurs in residence, it is, it's like a buffet from our experience, right? Because we, as Lisa mentioned, we get this opportunity to get involved in so many different types of entities, but they're so early stage, and they've got these incredible ideas, and they've even got some incredible pictures of what their application will be. But it's a function of taking that and then matching it to action. They've got to take action. They've got to build a business. And so we're simultaneously get this wonderful thing, which is we get to learn about all these different technologies. And then we get to be the teacher in turn, or the coach, or the collaborator in bringing some of the experience, as Lisa was mentioning, in terms of the operating world. What do you do on day one? How do you think about selling? How do you think about building an organization? How do you think about raising money? And that's the kind of experience that, when you've got the scars that the two of us have kind of lived through, we can bring to bear. So it's a great kind of collaborative effort that's really exciting.
Did mentors play, I imagine, a pretty good role in your entrepreneurial journeys?
Absolutely. Yeah. in the early days of entrepreneurship, for me at least, in my lived experience, it was mentors who helped me realize that entrepreneurship actually was the right path for me to take. And then as I was engaged in the process of building different companies, many steps along the way, whether it was a fellow entrepreneur who I came across, or a person who was a major executive in an organization that ended up talking to us about an acquisition. There's always people who have been ahead of you, so to speak, in terms of their development that you can learn from. I don't know.
Agreed.
So this is sort of like paying it forward in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So our I-Corps program here at UVA LVG is relatively new. What's been your experiences like that in that program so far?
I have really enjoyed I-Corps. I mean, for a number of reasons. One is, both Jim and I come from the doing part of the work.
Yeah.
And so having someone boil down what it really means to start a company in a slightly more academic frame has been useful to me as I've thought about, oh yeah, that is in fact what we've done, or maybe we haven't done that. So I've enjoyed the learning and becoming fluent myself in these types of frameworks that the I-Corps program uses. I've also really enjoyed honestly, the vulnerability and curiosity of the people who've come to the table. What I-Corps is the way that we run it here at UVA is, it's about a 4-week program where we spend a couple of hours a week, maybe 2 or 4 hours a week, with a group of people who are trying to articulate what their business model is or should be, talking about the customers that they've talked to see if the thing that they have is really useful to them, asking questions about all kinds of things. How do I approach a conference I'm going to next week? How do I find someone who might someday buy my thing because I need to talk to someone? Or how do I think about different types of funding? So I love the community aspect of I-Corps particularly. So everybody's at the table together, and hopefully the different teams are learning from each other as much as they're learning from people like Jim and myself.
Absolutely, yeah, you get that kind of cross cultivation. Even if you've got, we've talked about the applications like some kind of low carbon business versus a biotech company versus an ed tech company, there's still opportunities for each of those ventures to learn from each other, both in terms of potentially even the application of how they're thinking about the intellectual property that they built here at the University of Virginia, but also because they're all at different stages of development. And so there's that same kind of ladder effect that exists. So the businesses that have developed further have lessons to share. At the same time, one of the things that's impressed me incredibly, and just to build on what Lisa said, this dynamic of like the humility that the entrepreneurs show up with, where they are willing to take in so much information. The yield from that is there are some great lessons that they pick up in terms of the I-Corps curriculum, and they take those lessons and they build these beautiful designs, business designs and plans that can be put to action. Because again, plans are great, but plans that can be put into action is really how you advance your business. And you see people show up, they learn, and then they immediately put what they've learned into actions in ways that really are both something that other people in the I-Corps program can learn from. And quite frankly, since this is somewhat of a new flavor of entrepreneurship for me, is a learning experience for me as well.
You mentioned lessons, Jim, and is there like a lesson maybe looking back on your entrepreneurial career that you would have liked your young self to have learned, or maybe some advice now that you hope to impart on some of this younger generation of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's one of those things where it's like you could write a book on that. But, the biggest one is a theme that we've both talked about it several times. It's this bias for action. When you are in the process of building a business, very easy, it can come across as something that you want to spend a lot of time doing a lot of analysis. And in truth, what you really need to focus on is what's in front of you, what can you control, and what can you do to advance the business. As long as you're thinking about advancing the business, That's really going to be the most important thing to building your enterprise. And so that's the thing. If I had the time, the ability to go back to my 30-year younger self and convey it, I would say, stop thinking, start doing much sooner.
What if you could get in that time machine, Lisa?
Oh gosh, if I could get in that time machine, what would I do? You know, honestly, I would raise more money more quickly. So I was in my core entrepreneurial experience was starting this fund that was a nonprofit, and it had a fairly complicated business model, and I thought that I could build it and then raise. And we ultimately were able to do that, but I probably should have raised and then built. And that's something that we talk to our entrepreneurs about a lot here, particularly non-dilutive funding that comes from people who don't need to own part of your company.
Absolutely.
Understanding different sources of capital and being aggressive about going out and getting them before you have something fully baked. That was something that, I mean, my fund still exists and we were successful, but it was a nail biter at different points just from a capital perspective. And so that's something that I've appreciated talking about here in Charlottesville.
Well, I've really enjoyed chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. And anybody watching this can find you guys on our website, lvg.virginia.edu, and come in and talk to you guys some more.
Absolutely. We'd love to figure out how we're helpful, whether it's the curriculum, the resources, the network. That's what we're here for.
Bring your ideas. We love it. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.